Hi, everybody. We're the Skeleton Crew, and today we're going to talk not about T-Rex, although probably a little bit about T-Rex, because we are talking about one of its earliest known ancestors, which is a really cool thing to have in this game. We're talking about Proceratosaurus, which, as it's, despite its name, is not related to Ceratosaurus in any close manner at all. But before we talk about Proceratosaurus, I'm now going to plug things. This is the part of the video that you may think to skip, but don't. You're going to like hearing about what we have to plug. Please don't skip it.
Please.
First, I need to tell you about the good word of Topo Chico, a beverage that I am now out of because we drank it a lot this weekend when Dalton and Alex and Scott were at my house. We drank through the Topo Chico reserves, and I no longer have any. I only have this glass to remember it by. We're actually not being paid to tell you about Topo Chico, although, God, I hope one day we will be. So I'm not going to talk about it anymore today. Maybe. What I am going to talk about is something that could make us money, which is that we have an Etsy page with a bunch of pins on it. Now, the pins are limited supply. We will run out, and we're not going to make any more for the foreseeable future. So these designs are exclusive. They are leftover from Midwest Gaming Classic, so we're selling them off now. The designs are great. Amelia and Scott worked really, really hard on the designs, and they are fantastic. I think the pins are great. They've almost changed my tune on enamel pins, which are something that I've never particularly liked, but these are so pretty that I might make an exception and buy some of my own supply. They're really great. So come get them while you can. Supplies are dwindling, as I see by the torrent of emails from Skeleton Crew fans who want to buy these pins. So you should
get them while they're hot.
Get them while they're hot. Get them while they're around. And if these pins do well, who knows? Maybe we'll look into this in the future. But as I said, these pins are not going to be replenished. So what's there is what's there. If you're not interested in enamel pins, but you want to support the Skeleton Crew financially, please also consider supporting us on Patreon. Because our Patreon is fantastic. We have a patron Discord, which is a great growing community. We've got over 100 members now. And it's become a really fun and very supportive, positive place to talk about paleontology and movies and TV and music.
Mostly those
and presumably, yes, there's some other things too. We also have a bunch of other benefits, and we're going to be introducing a new benefit for some patrons in the near future. We're going to be doing some documentary watch-along audio tracks.
Or just paleo media
so
watch-alongs.
Keep your eyes peeled for that. Well, yeah, paleo media watch-alongs, I should say. Although I think we're going to start with the documentary.
Oh, I thought we said we were going to start with Jurassic Park. Because
So did I.
Oh, did we? Well, we might start with Jurassic Park.
No, I don't think we've said that publicly. I think we just chatted about it.
Oh, yeah. Who is to say where we start? But we will start somewhere. So keep your eyes peeled for that. If you can't or aren't inclined to support the Skeleton Crew financially, that's also completely okay. We appreciate all the support you show by just liking the video and leaving a comment, because doing all of that really helps us grow our audience even more and reach new people. And we think it's really great if you support us in any way that you can, just because we think what we do is important and valuable. That's why we run the channel and haven't stopped. We think it's important that science communication is brought to people directly by scientists and not through middlemen, essentially. Not that there's any problem with being a full-time science communicator, but I think that there's something that's lost because very few scientists actually take the time and effort to engage with the public directly, talk about what science is and how you do it, and all that sort of stuff. And if you agree and you think what we do is important and worth supporting, any kind of support you show us is really appreciated. And it helps us keep doing what we're doing. So thank you all in advance. And now I'll stop plugging things, and I'll introduce myself. It was, because I plugged so many things in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Call him a surge protector.
Yeah, actually, wait, I'm not done plugging things into this power strip. We also have a Redbubble, where that stays up. You can get stuff there at any time. But we have a bunch of designs, skull silhouettes mostly, but some other designs too, available on stickers, t-shirts, hats, bags, you name it, we've got it. I'm told a miniskirt, finally.
There's at least one.
There's at least one miniskirt. I think it looks bad, but I can't wait for the day that I see somebody wearing it, because I'm sure that somebody will think it looks good and wear it ironically to make me laugh.
It'll be me.
It might be Scott, is what I was about to say.
Were you really?
Yeah. It was. Anyway, All right, that's it. That's it for plugging. I'm Dr. James Napoli. I am a research instructor in the Department of Anatomical Sciences at the Renaissance School of Medicine of Stony Brook University, where I teach human anatomy to medical students, dental students, PA students, and physical therapy students. This is a bit now. To preempt comments to the contrary, I am still a paleontologist, and I still research dinosaur fossils. Many paleontologists are hired in medical schools to teach anatomy because there are a few scientists who know anatomy better than paleontologists do.
My name is Amelia Zietlow. I'm a PhD student, or PhD candidate. I earned that title. I'm not going to not say it, Jesus Christ. PhD candidate at the American Museum of Natural History. You may have noticed I am not in my regular recording setup, and that is because I'm in the process of moving, and this is hopefully the last episode I record from this apartment and from Manhattan, thank God. I will hopefully be less angry in future videos because I will not be here.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
And I'm Scott Johnston, the vertebrate paleontology fossil preparator and technician at Harvard University's Museum of Comparative Zoology.
Nice to see you, Scott.
Nice to see you, too.
It's been a long time.
It has been, too long.
My name is Alex Rubenstahl, and I'm a PhD candidate at Yale University, and my appearance in the video today is brought to you by Zapata Oil. Is your car empty? Do you have a democracy you'd like to subvert? Zapata Oil. That's good oil.
Good oil indeed.
Dalton's brought to us by Chiquita Banana.
My name is Dalton Meyer, and I'm also a paleontology guy. My brain, all of the synapses in my mind stopped in that moment. It was amazing. I'm also a PhD.
He felt freedom.
I'm also a PhD candidate at Yale University. And after my experience traveling to and fro from Long Island, I'm tempted to simply become a ferryman, what lives on the ferry and just goes back and forth all day, because it's very pleasant to take the ferry when it's not pouring rain.
Call him Chiron.
Indeed. Place a drop.
Chiron.
Chiron.
Yeah.
Call me Chiron because you put me over a screen to show something like a label or news of some kind.
That's pretty good.
Call me Chiron and put a what do you call them? Oh, drachma. Is it?
I think that's acceptable.
How long do you think that... I mean, it's just across a river, right? Like, it can't be that long a ferry ride.
I figured they weren't just crossing it. I figured they were going down it.
That's what I always
pictured
as well.
But, who am I? I'm not a limnologist of the Stygian realms. But what I am, indeed, and what we all are, in fact, are members of...
The Skeleton
Crew. Of the Skeleton Crew. Was that our worst one yet?
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
It was rough. I'm sorry that my brain stopped functioning for a moment.
Dalton, please release Proceratosaurus.
Certainly.
Let's do it. Oh, there's like an absolute ton of them that come out too. Oh my god, it's a plague.
I love it.
Cool.
Oh, good lord.
I like this one.
Yeah,
This is a good looking animal.
It's such a good design, although this one really, really suffers to me from, wow, it looks weird unfeathered.
Yes.
I was just thinking that, especially because it is feathered in the mobile games.
It is, although they do a weird older design for that, and they give it like the little like Ornitholestes nose horn base, like, and they don't extend the crest.
Well,
at least
what's
as far
funny?
as I remember.
That's entirely plausible.
It is, yeah.
Academically, I know it would be feathered, and it would be nice to see it so. This doesn't really bother me for some reason.
It's not as offensive.
It works.
I can see what you mean, Dalton. It's not like... It's not something where there should be some panaceous feathers. Like, what we're missing at this point in the tree is mostly fuzz.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I think this animal probably would have looked not too dissimilar if it were feathered.
Yeah.
Like, we're probably talking about very, very simple feathering.
Now,
given where they
I
are
could see
phylogenetically.
longer feathers.
But that could be a segue to phylogeny.
Well, we haven't said what its name means yet,
Yeah,
so it can't
I mean,
be.
just yes, it's not a segue to Phylogeny because
Oh my
what
god,
does
our delay's
Proceratosaurus
awful.
mean? Oh
What?
no.
No, it's coming in and out because there was a second there where you responded to my my statement like 3 seconds ago, and then you were just fine.
I'm not noticing it. I don't.
Okay, maybe it's on my end.
Scott is precogging.
Yes, so hard.
Scott's taking time from the pre-crime division to be here today.
Scott's stealing time from the future to give to the past.
Time cop. All right.
Anyway.
Anyways, ignore me.
So before we segue into Phylogeny and talk about the only interesting thing about this animal, what does what we call it mean?
So it means that it's being paid to be a ceratosaur. It's not doing it on its own. No. So pro in the meaning as in like prior or early, right? In that sense.
Or just before is how I've often heard it translated.
Yeah. So pro being before, Ceratosaurus being horned lizard after Ceratosaurus from. I don't know when this thing lived, but Ceratosaurus proper is from the Jurassic. So,
This is also from Jurassic.
whatever.
But it's from earlier in the Jurassic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so
10
and the
million
idea was
years.
that this thing was related to that Ceratosaurus. So it was because we're not creative all the time in paleontology when we name these things.
Like Parasaurolophus.
Playa platycarpus.
We're often... we at the
Platyplatycarpus.
Skeleton Crew are known to be...
Platyplatycarpus.
We'll say...
I'm done. Sorry.
We have opinions about names sometimes, but I will say that I think people got a little more juice in them now as far as fun names go than
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
past. They're the good ones in the past, you remember, because they are certified hood classics. But
Many of them, unfortunately, named by enemy of the channel,
yes,
Henry
Yeah,
Fairfield Osborne.
Many enemies of the channel.
but yeah, no, people every so often we make a joke about a silly name, almost assuredly assigned to some tyrannosaur. But
What to say about Proceratosaurus?
So I'll come out and say it. I like Proceratosaurus.
Yeah.
It's neat.
yeah,
I really
Yeah.
like its addition to the game, even if it's only in the game because it was mentioned on the side of. Was this one of the ones that was misspelled on the
I think so.
it's entirely
DNA
possible.
thing?
No, I don't.
Well, I know they misspelled
that's
Tyrannosaurus and
Metrocanthosaurus.
Stegosaurus, so I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah, I don't think
Oh,
this was
okay.
in canon ever.
It
It's
wasn't
one of the ones taken
really?
by. I thought it was one of the ones taken by.
I thought it was one of the ones taken by Nedry. Yeah.
No, it is. Excuse me.
No, I think you're thinking of Metrocanthosaurus.
Yeah.
program?
Oh, it is?
No,
Dennis
it's
Yeah.
there.
Nedry?
It's there.
Here's what I like about this animal. I like that it's kind of like scrunkly. You know?
It is.
Looks like a varmint.
It looks like a varmint. There's something about it, and I don't know how to justify what I'm saying, but it looks kind of primitive. In a way I like. Like, it reminds me
It's
of the
got
way
that
they do their
Herrerasaurus.
Herrerasaurus, which we talked about
Yeah.
right? Where it's got that kind of very... It feels like an archaic animal. And for something this old and phylogenetically basal, I kind of like that vibe for it. Something
Yeah.
about this, to me,
It's-
screams early dinosaur. Sorry, we are lagged the fuck out right
It
now.
even
I'm
kinda
sorry, Dalton.
sounds.
Oh, we're so
okay.
lagged.
It sounds remind me a bit of the Coelophysis from when dinosaurs roamed America too.
A little
The
bit,
primitive
yeah.
vibe.
It also, I think that at least part of what gives primitive to me about this guy and especially Herrerasaurus is their movements seem very stiff with very limited range of motion. That I remember like watching the way the Herrerasaurus runs around in the game. It feels like a very rigid animal, and this one kind of does as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
The wrists are good.
just to
right?
correct
yeah,
the
wrists
lag.
are good.
To try to correct the lag, I'm going to do something, so you may see me disappear, and so I'm going to formally invite Dalton at this point to tell us about this environment he put us in, so that if I kind of come in and out, it won't affect that bit.
Oh, certainly.
Would that be okay, Dalton?
Oh, do I have such it would be totally fine.
Okay.
I have such things to tell you, which is that I actually don't have much to tell you, frankly. I put them in our Megalosaurus enclosure because while Proceratosaurus, I think, is like the only thing that was found in the like exact place where it was found. I think it came from a mine. It's from essentially a group of rocks that contain rocks that produce Megalosaurus, as well as other things like Cetiosaurus. Stuff that I'm more interested in, like Marmoretta and Belairsia, which are some cool early Lepidosauromorphs and squamates. But they are these, let me just double check, Bathonian, so kind of Middle Jurassic, 166 million year old rocks. They're part of a kind of bigger limestone unit that's called the Great Oolite Group, because it's oolitic, which means it has these kind of features that are called oolites in it, which are round concentric circles that are of mineral deposits. And you get several things from the oolite group, including as Proceratosaurus, you get Megalosaurus, Cetiosaurus, or Cetiosaurus, depending on your predilection. And kind of more famously, part of this Great Oolite group and of similar age is the Tainton limestone. So that's where a lot of these kind of more famous fossils come from, and that's where we get some idea also of the plants that live there, which is it seems like it was wet, but it was like seasonally wet, and you get conifers, you get early ginkgo relatives, you get cycads, kind of your classic Mesozoic plants. Out of the Tainton limestone, which is what I've tried to represent a little bit in our.
I think you've done a fine job.
Indeed.
And
in the
Clausuaire.
tainted limestone.
Yeah, there's some early mammals that come from these rocks too, which are cool, but I don't really know anything about. So,
They were probably Proceratosaurus food.
Yes, they were almost certainly Proceratosaurus food. And if you're inclined to know more about those, I encourage you to look that up and just do your own research.
Watch a different channel. We don't know about mammals.
Yeah. It's a really, really cool thing, I think, that so many of these animals from this kind of time period are found in mines.
Yeah.
They yearn for them.
It sucks. Well, not only do they yearn for the mines, I assume this is because, like, so Middle Jurassic rocks, and this is the age of this deposit, it seems, are like not widely exposed to the surface. Like there's good reason for this sampling gap in the mid-Jurassic, which is upsetting because like the mid-Jurassic seems to be when most stuff happens in essentially vertebrate evolution, but especially tetrapod evolution. And I think that there is probably to some degree a sampling bias just because there's not a lot of Middle Jurassic rocks exposed. Like, there's a lot of late Triassic stuff all around the world, and there's a lot of late Jurassic, but there's these periods where we don't really have a lot of fossils or have a lot of knowledge, and it's not because we're not trying, it's just that there's not a lot of rocks, and if there's not a lot of outcrop to walk along, your chance of finding fossils is lower. And one thing that I have noticed that's kind of interesting is a lot of these Middle Jurassic, like faunas in Eurasia especially, are found by mining teams. And I do wonder if many of them are just not really exposed at the surface. Mm-hmm. Or rather, maybe if they're being mined, like, that's actually giving you the best chance to find stuff anyway. Like, even if it's not that they're mostly submerged or mostly buried, like, it's going to give you more access to the rocks than you would have otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway.
It could also be a land development thing, which, like, in England, Europe, but England specifically, like, very, like, it's woods or built over. Mm-hmm. And so, like, the only time you're actively exposing a lot of new rock and you're not on the coast is if you're digging a mine or in like China cutting clear sections of road or stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I mean that's I think a good point for a lot of it as well. But I think in this case it might be some combination of both because even like Middle Jurassic stuff, as you and I unfortunately know, Alex, is uncommon.
Until for now.
Yes.
I will amend briefly. Proceratosaurus itself actually not from a mine, but it was found when they were excavating a reservoir. out of the Great Ulite group. But something of interest interest to the Anglophiles who watch our channel, if there are any such people,
We're Anglophobes.
is that apparently so? The Great Ulite group. When you look it up on Wikipedia, you get an image of a mine. And it's the Combe Down and Bathamton Down mines. And I just Googled this, and it's an important source of bathstone, which is a word for this Ulitic limestone, which is, I believe, derives its name because it was the primary building stone used to construct the buildings in the city of Bath in England. And it's so valuable because it's what's apparently called a freestone, a term I had never heard before, despite having a geology degree. But freestone apparently relates to the fact that it can be cut and squared on any kind of plane. Like if you have a block of it, you can make a square cube out of it. It doesn't have any laminations or kind of preferential bedding. It's not like a slate where it's going to break along one plane. And so it was a valuable building material because it was a freestone.
That's
so
cool.
if you wanted to learn the terms freestone, bathstone, and a mine that I probably mispronounced because it spells combe, C-O-M-B-E, well, then there you go. You've learned it now. And you won't
That's a
unlearn
cool
it.
detail. That's neat.
Thank you for that factoid.
Yes.
I
Indeed.
had forgotten that factoid.
I
Well-
like doing that to your own comment, Alex.
I wanted to do it, and I did it.
I know.
So there is another animal similar, or superficially at least similar to Proceratosaurus, called Calescus, that was also found in a mine, and it's from relatively the same time.
Where
It's a
is it
lot
from?
bigger, though, right?
Is it also
So
in-
Calescus is Russian.
Oh, okay.
Scott, I cannot emphasize how little of Calescus we have. We have so little.
Like, how little of Calescus do we have?
We have most of a maxilla, most of a premaxilla, a little bit of the back of the jaw, 2 hand bones, and like 4 foot bones, and maybe a couple of verts, depending on if you agree they're referral.
Because
Things have been
I
described
always,
as less.
They have.
because I frequently see Calescus like reconstructed as like Utah raptor sized.
I have no idea what that's based on.
Okay.
Like, I don't know. The maxilla's maybe 20, 25 centimeters. So, like,
Wow.
we're talking about, like, a maxilla like that. Like, I don't know.
so-
It's probably bigger than Proceratosaurus, but, like,
Maybe not by much.
yeah, I mean, it's hard to say anything confidently about animals in this region of the tree, which are not completely known.
Oh, wow. I
That's
found,
fair.
My source senator.
I made. I found
What'd you find out?
the paper that described Calescus, and
Oh,
the illustration. If you look it up on Wikipedia, and you look at the skeletal diagram of what they have of the skull,
Yeah.
oh, I see what they've done now. They've very unhelpfully drawn the skull in white, and then the gray bits are what is preserved.
That's what oh God, are you kidding me?
This is a non-standard skeletal in that it's.
Misleading.
Well, yes. I was trying to be charitable, but no, it misled
No.
me, certainly. I was like, oh, we actually have a lot of the skull of Calescus.
Yeah,
And then I looked at the-
I always remember,
paper.
like, kind of half remember this skeletal and just going, yeah, we have a skull.
We have
that's
bones
bad.
that were part of a skull.
Are
Yeah,
you
so
looking at it,
I,
Alex?
I guess
Oh,
that
oh, no.
this kind of ties into something that I had, like, half mentioned before we started recording, in that we were talking a little bit about the head crest of this guy here, and I had a little bit of a debate with myself of like, oh, is this based on Guanlong? Is this based on Calescus? And James informed me that Calescus is a name on the wind that you chant at some rocks and say that that's what it is. And we don't have a lot of it. So Guanlong is the only one of these that we actually have a head crest for.
And by
Well,
these, I'm
Utah
going to lead
rabbit.
us in. Well, I'm going to lead us into phylogenum now, where I was going before we realized that the skeletal is admittedly a bit misleading.
It is better. The fossil is. If this image that I found is to be trusted, it's better than I thought, and it's better than that skeletal leads me to believe.
The bone is preserved with pretty good resolution.
Yeah.
So it was found in Russia in a coal mine. And there have been a couple of discoveries that have been attributed to it. It's possible that they're all the same individual, but I don't think we have any information about where they were found in the mine. But like a lot of stuff, the bone texture is actually quite good. It's just that it's very incomplete. Like the max is a little broken up. Also, it's a little hard to interpret if you're not a Tyrannosaur person. I'll paste an image into here. Although it is helpfully labeled, but like it appears to have a fairly large maxillary fenestra, and then we're missing quite a bit like posterior. So I think I've seen people try to interpret that maxillary fenestra as like an antorbital fenestra. But no, it's correctly labeled in the image, to be clear.
I could see how you would think that.
But the other bones are well preserved. Like the hand bones are pretty good. Beautiful surface texture. It's just that there's not a lot of it. But anyway, the reason I bring up Calescus is that Calescus appears to be a member of a group that contains Proceratosaurus, which also, as Scott kind of hinted at, includes Guanlong and Eutyrannus, and another animal called Sinotyrannus that is much more poorly known, but appears to be very much like Eutyrannus. And these animals are called Proceratosaurs. Proceratosauridae is the name of the group, and they're named that because Proceratosaurus is the first member of the group that was ever discovered, right? This one comes from the 1800s. So, these Proceratosaurs, what distinguishes them? Probably that they possess a head crest. We don't know this for Calescus. We don't know this for Proceratosaurus really, but Guanlong and Eutyrannus and Sinotyrannus, or what if Sinotyrannus is preserved, all evidence a midline crest on the head that is mostly being made up of the premaxilla, or I'm sorry, mostly made up of the nasal. So you're getting it's not paired. It's not like Dilophosaurus. It is very much just one midline structure that's probably very heavily pneumatized, or that is very heavily. There's a tiny contribution of the premax in Proceratosaurus from what looks like this head crest, where the premax just kind of like turns up, but it's mostly a nasal crest. It doesn't appear to involve the frontal bone either, so it's really the nasal is doing something very weird. So that seems to... another feature that these animals share is a huge external nares. The nares is really, really long, so there's the bony opening for the nostril at the front of the snout. It's really long, and it's kind of canted at about a 40-degree angle from the horizontal. This is not unique to Proceratosaurids either, though, because it's found in other theropods that are presumably close relatives, but not members of this group, such as Megaraptorans, based on the juvenile skull of Megaraptor, and Dilong, which does not appear to be a Proceratosaur. We'll talk about broadly what Proceratosaurs are in a minute. These traits are like pretty typical of these Proceratosaurs. One thing that's interesting is Proceratosaurus has a lot of teeth, whereas most other Proceratosaurs seem to have fairly low tooth counts. It's possible that this is, maybe indicating that the Asian Proceratosaurs are forming a clade with each other, which I wouldn't be surprised by. Proceratosaurus itself is quite a bit older, and it's from a different area, so it's very possible that there's some change that happened within the clade. Now, Proceratosaurs are themselves currently, I would say, the only agreed upon early diverging tyrannosauroids, or only universally agreed upon early diverging tyrannosauroids. Nobody gets them as anything else. Some phylogenies have gotten Tanicolagrius and Coelurus as the earliest diverging tyrannosauroids.
I've heard of Tanicolagrius being that.
Yeah, and I think
It might be the other one, though.
Right. We have opinions about Coelurus that we will share when the time is right.
Watch this page.
We have
Right, exactly.
We don't have opinions. We have
We
science.
have correct
facts.
interpretations. Now, that said, like the uncertainty about Coelurus and Tanicolagrius aside, Proceratosaurs are pretty confidently resolving as the earliest diverging tyrannosaurs. The traits that they share with tyrannosaurs include the premaxilla bone at the front of the snout being extremely short, In Tyrannosaurs, the premaxilla is like really excluded from forming much of the snout. Like if you look at Velociraptor's skull, we'll put an image up here. Like Velociraptor's actually got quite a large premaxilla. It's making up quite a lot of the rostrum. In Tyrannosaurs in general, the premaxilla's exposure at the front of the snout, like when you look at the side of the snout, it's very, very short. It's just making up the very tip of the upper jaw. The jugal of Tyrannosaurs is pneumatic. So a pneumatic diverticulum from the anteorbital sinus, which is this large pneumatic development that is like, very much like our sinuses, essentially an outgrowth of the paranasal tissues. People call them air sacs colloquially sometimes, although that's not really correct. Right. It's not correct. But the anteorbital fenestra of a dinosaur, which is this big space between the nostril and the eye socket, has many diverticulae, which are smaller outpocketings of one sinus space. And in Tyrannosaurs, one of these diverticulae invades the jugal and pneumatizes it. So there'll be a kind of a large slit-like opening that's visible externally, toward the back of the anteorbital fossa and fenestra, and a sinus cavity invades the jugal. That's present in Proceratosaurus, and it's present in later diverging Tyrannosaurs as well, all the way up to T-Rex. The jugal also has kind of this rugose flange that extends downward below the orbit. This has been referred to as a horn. I don't know if I agree that that's what it is. I know there's some research that might be suggesting a different interpretation of it that hasn't been published yet. This is not my own project, but it's something that some other people are working on. But regardless, it's like a little tab that just sticks down from the orbit, and it's a little bit rough and rugose in texture. The ventral surface of the basisphenoid bone, which is one of the bones that forms the basicranium, or the bottom of the brain case, points posteroventrally instead of just ventrally. So the brain case is kind of being compressed and shifting downward. This is a directed trend that happens in Tyrannosaurs. So in more basal theropods, the floor of the brain case is essentially like, I'm trying to think what's best to do with my hands to explain this. The floor of the brain case is essentially flat, and it's formed by like a contiguous arrangement of your basisphenoid and your basioccipital bone. In Tyrannosaurs, the brain case kind of rotates backwards so that the brain cavity is facing forward and up, and the bottom of the brain case is kind of facing backward. That trend in Tyrannosaurs is starting within Proceratosaurus. Like we're seeing an early step there. Kind of akin to the shrinking of the premaxillae and their kind of reduction at the front of the snout, the premaxillary teeth are very different in size. So generally in theropods, the premaxillary and maxillary teeth are quite comparable in size, but in Tyrannosaurs, the premaxillary teeth are much smaller. Now, later in Tyrannosaur evolution, the premaxillary teeth evolve into essentially chisels, which my suspicion is that they use to scrape the flesh off of bone. Like they look very well suited for that and not much else. They're not chisel-like yet here, but they are much smaller than the maxillary teeth. And they have their serration lines, what we call carinae, rotated and placed differently on the tooth. So in a general theropod tooth, the anterior or mesial, there's special terminology for teeth that we don't need to fully get into. But the front row of serrations goes up and down the tooth kind of along the midline, and the back row of serrations goes up and down roughly in the midline too. In Tyrannosaurs, the serrations are on the side of the teeth in the premaxillary teeth. And so this is why we refer to them as being D-shaped. It's not D-shaped in lateral profile, it's D-shaped in cross-section, because you've got a front of the tooth that's kind of curved like this, then a row of serrations at the back corners on each side, and then a flat back. So the entire tooth, if you looked at it in cross-section, would look like that, with serrations here and here. So this is a very characteristic Tyrannosaur thing we're seeing an early stage of in Proceratosaurus.
I have a dumb question.
Yes, of course.
Are there like convergently D-ish like premaxillary teeth in like allosaurs?
No, not to my knowledge.
Okay. I remember them being kind of round in allosaurs.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say there's no shape variation there, but this rotation, the migration of the carinae is what's used to define the D-shape thing.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So these are a selection of the traits that appear in, and these are all from Rauhut 2010, which is the most recent investigation of Proceratosaurus' anatomy. Very, very good paper. These are all the traits that are optimizing as synapomorphies of Tyrannosauroidea, which is the broader group that includes Proceratosaurids and later diverging Tyrannosaurs and Tyrannosaurids as this last group that seems to appear in the Cretaceous. So everything that's like descended from the last common ancestor of Proceratosaurus and T-Rex would be in this group, and they share all of these traits. And this is interesting because none of this seems to be related to body size, because they're first appearing in this very, very small-bodied precursor to the rest of the group. That's important to know, right? It's important to know that things that Tyrannosaurs have are not just like things that happen to theropods when they get large. And we're seeing many of these detailed traits appearing in a smaller animal. I think that this is a good kind of illustration of the way we use synapomorphies to identify things. That even though Proceratosaurus does not superficially look a lot like Tyrannosaurus, if you look at the details of its anatomy, you see that it shares many unique traits with these larger-bodied Tyrannosaurs. Right? So we don't use gross similarity to do our phylogenetics. We're using, again, unique derived characters or synapomorphies. And these are the kinds of things that we look for. Right?
And it helps us understand character evolution.
It does. It does quite a bit. And I only say this because I often see in kind of the, paleo, online communities, I see a lot of people look at like skeletals of different animals and say like, oh, I think these are related. They look very similar. But again, you need to be looking for apomorphic character states, not just a broad similarity, because that's what tells you about relationships. It's as evolution occurs, lineages become increasingly specialized or modified. And looking for those evolutionary novelties is how we do systematics. Like, this is the central revelation of Willy Hennig and the ideas behind phylogenetic systematics. Right? And it's the way we still do it because it's correct and it maps with our understanding of evolution.
Yep.
So that's what a character is, right? A character isn't, oh, this is kind of shaped the same as, like this animal is shaped kind of like, I don't know. You could look at the model in this game and assuming it's correct, I would forgive you for saying it looks a lot like Coelophysis. Mm-hmm. But if you look at the architecture of its skull, you're going to find way more similarities with Tyrannosaurus Rex than you are with Coelophysis.
In fact, segue. Bam!
Exactly. I set you up, Alex.
Pull over. I'm hijacking.
This is a setup.
This is a hijacking of your phylogenum because for a minute, we've discussed a few things, and James's comparison to Coelophysis is beautiful and sets me up lovely, which is that based on gross general similarity, before phylogenetics and cladistics graced the world of dinosaurs, Proceratosaurus and Coelurosaurs more generally, kind of any small, gracile, not big chompy theropod were thrown into this Coelurosauria bin, Coelophysis included. For a long time, it was thought that, or not, I don't want to say thought, but it had been proposed that Coelophysis was actually a ancestor, a more direct ancestor of things like Coelurus in the Jurassic. We now know this is not the case, and through the work of Jacques Gautier of Yale, who did one of the first phylogenetic analyses of Saurischia, proving the monophyly of Saurischia, which was a big deal because we weren't sure if the different major groups of dinosaurs were actually one monophyletic group or if they were disparate kinds of reptiles, which, how far we've come. Proceratosaurus was actually featured in his work. And it was also featured in Oliver Rauhut, who did the 2010 description, a lot of his subsequent early work on theropod relationships. And it kind of floated around as a Coelurosaur of uncertain relationship until later work with Tyrannosaurs kind of pinned it down. But yes, feeding back into what James said a little bit, the reason that we don't consider Coelophysis, despite its kind of primitive, what we now recognize as the primitive body shape of theropods, to be a Coelurosaur. He's going. I've offended him. He disappears. Oh, it's all right. Yes, but things like Coelurus and Proceratosaurus have a suite of specific characters that makes them Coelurosaurs, and Coelophysis is incredibly primitive in a lot of its anatomy, but just shares a similar shape and being small. I'm now going to talk very briefly about primitive Coelurosaurs. There are many groups. I'm sorry?
So I'll start the timer.
Okay. Let me, I'm doing my warm-ups, my unique New York. All right. There are a bunch of Coelurosaur clades. One that we've talked about a lot today are Tyrannosaurs. In addition to Tyrannosaurs, right, Ornithomimosaurs, Therizinosaurs, Oviraptorosaurs, Alvarezsaurs, Compsognathids, Troodontids, Deinonychus, whatever, etc. Most of these groups are poorly represented in the Jurassic, and there should be lots of them, or at least some in the Jurassic, because every single Coelurosaur group has evolved by at least the end of the Middle Jurassic. Uh-oh. Something that's kind of nice about Tyrannosaurs is that they have as far as Coelurosaurs go, pretty good record. We get them, we have, thanks to Proceratosaurus, we have a Middle Jurassic Tyrannosauroid, and just... Oh, he's gone. So it's cool that we have a Tyrannosaurid from the Middle Jurassic. As I said before, we're missing a lot of the early record for a lot of Coelurosaur groups. And when you think about just how different something like Proceratosaurus is from Tyrannosaurus, or really like a lot of even the early Cretaceous Tyrannosaurs, it puts into important context how much, what the actual evolution of a group like this looks like. And we do have early representatives for most Coelurosaur groups, but we don't have that early representative, right? Like we have things like Incisivosaurus for Oviraptorosaurs, Pelecanimimus for Ornithomimosaurs, and these all look like the group that they're best known from, but a little more primitive. Either they have more teeth, more generalized anatomy. But what's also kind of cool about Proceratosaurs is that these early Tyrannosaurs have like gigantic face crests, which is probably not something you would predict them having just sampling like their ancestors, right? You might have a generalized kind of little Tyrannosauroid.
Or at least one of them does.
Yes, yeah.
Two.
And kind of Eutyrannus.
Well, I was going to say that's the other one. Guanlong Eutyrannus, and Sinotyrannus seems to be like Eutyrannus.
Okay.
See, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm embracing my inner Dalton for a second and being a size queen. I wouldn't necessarily say that Eutyrannus is huge. Like, it's definitely a prominent ridge, but it's having it in the same breath as Guanlongs, I think, is a stretch.
Okay.
That's a fair point. It is smaller.
That's fair.
In fact,
Sure.
I didn't know Eutyrannus. This is an embarrassing story about me. I did not know Eutyrannus had a midline nasal crest when I started graduate school. And I had a brief, I shouldn't even say argument because I was so thoroughly annihilated by Mark Norell. But I had a brief where he just was like, oh, like they've all got crests early on. Like, Guanlong's got a crest, Eutyrannus has a crest. I was like, Eutyrannus doesn't have a crest. And he was like, yes, it does. And I was just like, okay, I'm probably wrong about this.
Lamau.
And I
yes.
was. But it's not very big.
But you learned, and it's important when you're wrong to learn from when you were wrong,
And
and
then
to
be
learn
right.
to learn how to be right, or to learn how to effectively hide when you're wrong, so you look like you're correct.
Exactly.
Don't do that; it's bad for your brain. Anyway, yes. So another group with some early representation in the Jurassic are Alvarezsaurs. So we have what is probably a pretty early Alvarezsaur in Haplochirus, which we won't talk about in this series because there are no Alvarezsaurs in this game, which is like Big L. I bring up all of these things because I would like to talk about Tanyclagrius and Coelurus for a moment. Not in a way where I will scoop or reveal my research. But also, I have not been particularly quiet about it, and if you really... You can find out what I think about it. A lot, not all the time, but often, newly discovered early Coelurosaurs will end up turning, in a phylogenetic analysis, can very, very often end up turning out to be either a Tyrannosaur or an Alvarezsaur. And the reason for this, well, it could be that that's genuinely the case. I could see arguments for Tanyclagrius. But it's also important to keep in mind that the only Jurassic representatives for these clades that we can pull characters from are Tyrannosaurs and Alvarezsaurs. So we might just be sampling primitive Silurosaur anatomy, which we don't really have a great idea of what that looks like because the Jurassic Silurosaur record is pretty sparse compared to the Cretaceous. So it's just something that we as scientists have to kind of keep in mind when we're looking at analyses and constructing characters, right? What is primitive? That primitive Silurosaurian anatomy is still derived relative to the larger clade, stuff like that. It's very hard. Please, if you're entering the field, please go find more early Silurosaurs. It's so hard to tell what Silurus is. It's not a Tyrannosaur. I'm not going to tell you what I think it is, but it's definitely not a Tyrannosaur. Was James frozen, or is James just...
No,
reading?
I'm just
Okay,
motionless.
That's it. It's. I don't want to sound biased, but I mean, personally, I think it's the most interesting part of Silurosaur
I thought you were going
relationships
to be
investigate.
personally. I think Silurus is the most interesting Silurosaur that's ever discovered. I was like, this is unbiased.
I think it's pretty cool. I honestly, cool. I don't think I could say it's the coolest one though. No, I'm just saying there's a lot of interesting questions in theropod evolution. Almost none of them are in Tyrannosaurs. They're mostly in Ceratosaurs and some of the earlier stuff. And then what is the origin of Silurosaurs and the kind of on the way to birds? There are a lot of questions, and I'm joking a little bit. There are cool things that are happening in Tyrannosaurs.
There are. And I'm doing all of them, but no, I'm not doing all of them. But yeah, it is a really important thing, and I'm going to take Phylogenum back. The courts have given me custody of Phylogenum for the remainder of this episode and alternate weekends. So
it's the system is rigged against single.
Anyway, there's another group of animals that everybody has said recently, or that are getting a lot of traction as being potentially tyrannosaurids as well, and those are Megaraptorans.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
I don't really have a firm opinion on this right now. Megaraptoran material. Megaraptorans are among the storied ranks of Caenagnathids and Troodontids, in that when they died, they all had the martyrdom perk from Call of Duty. And that when they died, they dropped a grenade that scattered the remains to the wind, preventing a complete skeleton from ever being discovered.
We're never going to find one.
Well, there is good unpublished material of Megaraptorans that's been discovered recently. I mean, when I say good, I don't mean dinosaur park formation type quality, but we're finding there's a lot of work that's been done to find more material, and I think we're going to get resolution on their position soon. Okay. And I don't know what those ongoing projects have revealed about their relationships, so I'm not at risk of scooping anything here.
It's all Cretaceous, right?
Oh, it's all Cretaceous. Yeah, we're not finding Jurassic Megaraptorans. Yeah.
Shit, maybe that's what Silurus is. It's got a lot of pneumaticity.
That would be weird, I would hate that a lot.
I don't like Megaraptorans.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Time to only look at the Astrolovenator paper in my comparison now. Right. Time to fit it. Right.
There are some matrices that get Megaraptorans as being Tyrannosaurids, and the argument in favor of this, and one good, and I will harken back to something that happened off screen here. When I say the word character, I need you to understand, and I need you to understand this because Amelia reminded me, that a character is what we call a trait, or a thing. And this is the phrase that's been used for decades in this field. I don't know what the original etymology of why we've said character instead of trait.
It's probably based off of characteristic, I would say.
That's my guess, is that it's a shortening of characteristic, but
it's because...
It's because what?
It's because Big Paleo is funded by
AMC, by ABC Family.
Yeah,
characters only.
Characters welcome.
Characters welcome.
Yeah.
Not characters only.
I'm sorry. Whatever.
Only characters.
It's a dating site for just phylogenetic characters.
No, I think that what it really comes down to is that paleontology or I guess morphological studies in biology is mostly performed by people like us. That being characters.
Oh,
indeed,
I like that.
That's very sweet. I like
that to be it.
Anyway, a character is a trait. And I use the word character more when I'm talking about, like, I think in my mind I switch a little bit and I call it a trait when it's something that hasn't been formalized. But when I'm talking about like a trait that is in a matrix with some definition and with some like scoring that's been done, that's when I would tend to call it a character. But I don't think that that's a generalized usage. But if I switch between them, I think that's usually what's going on. But I'm going to try to just call them traits now. So there are a few traits that these primitive tyrannosauroids have that are also seen in Megaraptorids. And one of them is that the external nares is very, very long and exists at an angle. Now, that's not unique to Proceratosauroid or Proceratosaurids, because Dilong also has this. And though Dilong does have a short crest on the nasals, phylogenetic analyses, to my knowledge, have not ever... Yes, it has a short crest. I know.
See,
It surprises many.
I was going to say, I'm like, we're going to have a recapitulation of that Mark Norell conversation you just told us about. It does?
It does. It has a short crest, and it's kind of Y-shaped. It's very interesting. Dilong got a lot of press for being this first discovered feathered tyrannosaur. I remember I was 9 when it was announced, and like this is the first dinosaur I remember people I didn't know asking me about when they found out I was like a dinosaur kid. They were like, "Oh, did you just hear about that T-Rex relative that had feathers?" And I'd be like, "Of course I heard about it." And at the time, I wasn't happy about it.
Do you know who I am?
Right? Do you know who I am?
I think we've all forgotten who the
Right. Anyway, I don't know who the I am right now. Dilong is probably not a Proceratosaur. I am not aware of matrices that have found it as one.
I have not seen any, but
despite what Wikipedia might hint.
Does Wikipedia hint that about Dilong?
It does. On the subgroups under Proceratosaurids, it has Dilong with a question mark along with Stoxusosaurus.
Well,
it usually only does that if there's like a referral, though, right?
yeah,
Usually does.
Oh, it was one finding, 2014. Oh, it was in the juvenile Megaraptor paper itself, which I have open, and it was on the prior page. They also found Tanicolagrius as a Proceratosaurid, though, and so I am not... Okay, there's a reason for this. Let's talk about matrix construction for a second, because that's what this episode is, apparently.
Let's go! You've all been waiting for it.
Okay. When you make a phylogenetic matrix, you are probably referencing, to some degree, a specific group of organisms that you are interested in and you're sampling the variation from. And weird things can happen if an animal is put into a matrix that is not designed with the range of variation in that animal in mind. For instance, if I scored a human in the theropod working group matrix, first of all, it would have to place humans within Theropoda unless we specified that it was the outgroup. Second, it would place it somewhere. Would that placement be meaningful? No. So you need to choose a matrix that's appropriate to your question. And I'm not saying that the authors of this paper didn't do that, but their matrix is very heavily weighting like more basal theropods with not a lot of taxon sampling of Coelurosaurs, because the purpose of their study was more to try to figure out what Megaraptorans were, so they sampled more broadly. And that means that relationships within these more derived Coelurosaur groups may not be correct. Or have, I think, a greater likelihood of being artifactual because of the kinds of characters that are included, and because of the number of other species that are in the analysis that go in various different places. Like, for instance, if you're doing a mammal-wide matrix that's supposed to be able to place like things from monotremes all the way up to placental mammals, you might have like one representative of each major family, so to speak. If you include 2 primates or 3 primates, you might not get the correct relationship of them because you don't have enough information about the different character states or the different combinations of traits that you see within those animals to correctly recover the in-group relationships of some of these clades, which means like the phylogenetic arrangement of the species that go within smaller groups relative to larger ones.
Recall Oculodentavis. Oculudentavis.
Oculudentavis was the example I was deciding whether or not I was going to bring up. But now
okay,
we've brought it up. It's up now. Oculodentavis was erroneously interpreted as a bird, and when scored in the bird matrix, occupied a fairly basal position, because essentially the matrix was saying, what the hell is this? So when you score something in a matrix that it really shouldn't go in, usually the placement you find is like very basal, but not the most basal, because that has to be the outgroup, which is specified analytically as not being a member of the rest of these groups.
Yep.
So usually what happens is the matrix is essentially like, okay, well, all of these are birds and have bird traits, and they clearly all go together. And then there's this thing. So this is probably just the most basal, like the most parsimonious arrangement is for that to be just a weird early diverging member, with everything else kind of forming a more normal.
The same thing appears to have happened when we ran our analysis of Cryptovaranoides. That when we put it in a matrix that covered a broad sampling of reptiles, we found it on the Archosaur side as opposed to the Lepidosaur side. But when we put it in a matrix that was only designed for lizards, we found it at the very base of lizards.
Right.
I think
Right.
it's, and maybe you intended to say this, not, sorry, Dalton, or maybe you didn't, but it's not just like doing an oopsie and having something that's not supposed to be in the data set, in your data set, is not just going to give you a weird position for like a bird in a lizard matrix, or a lizard in a bird matrix. Like it's like, oops, we got this thing that's the most basal. Its position there is going to affect what we call character polarity, which is basically how the characters evolve up the tree in the order. And you can't just, once you've run the analysis, you can't just be like, all right, ignore that, because all of those relationships up tree from that are then going to be probably pretty screwed up from the changes in character polarity of your mystery monster. So please yikes is all.
That's a good point. And I mean, the long and short of it of what I'm getting at here is that this is the only analysis I'm aware of that found Dylong to be a Proceratosaur. But it also found Tannicalagrius to be a Proceratosaur, which I don't think is the case based on what I've seen of Tannicalagrius. And my suspicion is that in a theropod matrix that samples from Ceratosaurs up to Coelurosaurs, and is kind of existing at a broad level to figure out, like, in a very, very broad sense, where on the tree do Megaraptorans go, I am not especially trusting of the internal relationships among Tyrannosaurs that are recovered in that. Now, is it possible Dylong's a Proceratosaur? Yeah, absolutely, it's possible, but that's not a relationship that's been found in other analyses. That said, Dylong also has this really long nostril, and Dylong is usually positioned as being the most basal member of the clade that can be broadly considered the rest of Tyrannosauroids. So you get Proceratosaurs branching off, and then another whole group of Tyrannosauroids that goes up to T-Rex, and Dylong is almost always recovered as the first branching member of that group. And so Dylong is probably preserving, to some degree, an ancestral morphology, which might indicate that there was ancestrally a small crest that was elaborated in Proceratosaurs and lost in later Tyrannosaurs. And it might be indicating that this very, very long nostril is something that's actually just a very primitive trait of Tyrannosaurs that is not persisting all the way to the end. If that's the case, then the long nostril is something that Megaraptorans share with Tyrannosaurids. Megaraptorans also, based on the juvenile Megaraptor skull, have a fairly short premaxilla. So, Again, there's another trait here. And I don't think this relationship's impossible, but I just want to say, like, to everybody who's kind of taking it as established fact that Megaraptorans are primitive, or are to some degree Tyrannosaurids, I would say that the evidence is not strongly in favor of that yet.
But they're definitely Coelurosaurs.
The only thing that's
I'm fairly certain they're Coelurosaurs, but whether they're Tyrannosaurids or not remains to be seen. And it could be this problem that Alex mentioned, where it's possible they're just another group of Coelurosaurs, but because of the way we sample characters and the way that we've sampled most of our species, the analysis is currently kind of getting mostly it's the boss baby meme.
It's the boss. Yes,
it's the boss baby meme. It's the analysis that's only seen Tyrannosaurids. Man, I'm getting real Tyrannosaurid vibes from this. Like that's really it.
Oh, that's
right.
awesome.
Good. That's a good clip. God
that's
damn,
it.
that's a
it's the
good
boss baby
clip.
meme.
If you would
I-
like to know... Oh, sorry.
Well, it's just as much math as we could talk about going into phylogenetic analysis. That's effectively what it is, right? If the characters you sample are, as being basal coelurosaur characters, are from Tyrannosauroids, then basal coelurosaurs will be interpreted as having Tyrannosaur shared derived characters, or synapomorphies, these unique traits that allow us to recognize groups. And so the analysis will be misleading. And you need a lot more material to start overweighting that signal and finding the true topology. And because of the problems with finding fossils in this region, I was not done. Because of the problems with finding fossils in this region of time, we don't have a lot of those. Like, we don't have a lot of other basal coelurosaurs that we could use to more reliably polarize the characters and start to sort these issues out. Now I'm done. Sorry, Alex.
If you would like to know more about Megaraptorans, watch our future video at some point where we spin Australuvinator.
Could be the next one.
Could be. That'd be cool.
It could be.
Where we'll repeat a lot of the same things you heard in this video.
Well, yeah, but if you'd like to know more about Megaraptorans, so would we.
Yep.
Yeah. I have seen images of some new material that's been discovered, though, and it's a real treat. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's pretty cool. All right.
It's going to be cool when that stuff gets written up.
What else were you talking about?
So, I think it might be important to discuss a little bit of just some proposed ecology on this guy.
Sure.
Namely, I have a question
Wait,
aimed
Scott,
at our...
are you going to tell us to talk about paleoecology?
I'm setting up a bit.
I'm sorry.
Let my man bit. Let my man set up.
Namely, I want to ask our two big brain theropod bros here a question. So, in this game here, Jurassic World Evolution 2, Proceratosaurus is depicted as a fearsome pack hunter that is able to strip a Brachiosaurus clean in 20 seconds flat. And just leave naught but bones remain. Could they do this?
Yes.
Okay.
Obviously. This is,
Of course.
I can't believe you even brought this up as a question.
That's a good
This
point.
is the only theropod where we have actual good evidence of pack hunting.
Right. All of the one fossil of it were discovered mid-stripping all the flesh off of Brachiosaurus. You see the Brachiosaurus crying out for help with its top half, and the bottom half is just bones, as if that would be different than the top half in a fossil. This joke is not going anywhere.
It's rarely figured, because it's always figured in left lateral view, as is paleontology. But if you look at the right side of the skull, there is a self-inscribed, and we know from the angle, a squad number of the Proceratosaurus, as well as a tally kill mark for Brachiosaurus. It's kind of a
It's got
crude
decals on its nose.
Yeah, it's decaling the other side of its crest, and that's how we know.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that's why the crest is there. I do have to say that, firstly, man, this thing is, I absolutely hate that they gave pack hunting to anything but Velociraptor and Deinonychus in this game. It's a nightmare.
They patched that, right?
No.
They didn't?
What do you mean?
Velociraptor and Deinonychus can pack hunt now, right?
They always
No, I'm saying they always have been able to. I'm saying I'm bemoaning the fact that anything else can.
My apologies. I misunderstood you, Scott.
I think that once they added in that feature in the Cretaceous Predator pack, the mob hunting or whatever it was, or group hunts where multiple things could chase something but only one could get the kill, I think that they should have added that to literally everything besides the dromaeosaurs. Because, wow, it is absolutely horrible that these guys can kill sauropods. But
you don't believe in them?
I don't.
Is that what you're
really
telling me? You don't
That's what I'm
trust them?
telling. I don't. I believe
Sad.
in many things. This man is not one of them. I just have another little quick statement on Proceratosaurus here. Namely, Holy shit, that skull is gorgeous. The only specimen
Oh, it's
on it
beautiful.
is so pretty. Like, sure,
Really
it's
nice
missing
specimen.
the top of it, but like, oh god. And I did do some reading into the original description because I was really, really wondering if this was a case where like the rest of it was there and it was like broken off by an inexperienced collector or something. And no, it was found like that. It was a natural break that was full of calcite crystals. So
So you could say its head just did that.
its head just
just
did
did
that.
You
Oh my god.
you don't say its head is full of calcite crystals because it scans real bad.
Oh, wow. It's one of the worst CT scans I've ever worked with, and
no.
it makes
That's
me,
a shame.
makes me
This-
very sad.
this is not a
it's not
critique.
just
Yes.
a gorgeous like aesthetic skull. Like it is also like the bone texture's lovely, and I love that it was preserved in like the pose that everyone does skeletals in, of like the mouth is very slightly open, it's lovingly articulated, like it looks like people expect dinosaur bones to look like
Yeah.
when they find them. And it was also prepped wonderfully, I must say.
Yeah.
It is supremely
yes.
crushed.
Yeah, but so I do have a point as well from the extended talk on phylogeny here that like I believe that you two gentlemen might be mistaken here, because according to the original description of our little friend here in 1910, in the last sentence of the first paragraph, it says. It is rather small, measuring only 26 centimeters in total length, but there cannot be much doubt that it belongs to the genus Megalosaurus itself. So,
me, I guess.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right.
what do
I'm
you
sorry.
have to say to that?
I've been made a fool of.
By Woodward himself. How dare.
Yeah.
I would like to have
Right.
a word with that Woodward.
That sure.
doubt.
Yeah.
We were also having a chat a little bit beforehand, everyone, that, James, you want to relay the exact phrase that you used with, I commented about how absolutely gorgeous the reconstruction was of the lithograph of this skull here.
Yes. I'm trying to remember what I said.
It was something along the lines of like, it's incredible to me how all of these old paleontological descriptions have.
Yeah.
No, go on.
Yeah, no,
You do it.
right. What I said was, it's incredible to me that every old paleontological description has like the most perfect figures ever made and the absolute worst scientific interpretations you'll ever see.
See,
It's-
I really like the little, just the fact that this was such an old, and I mean that in the sense of like it was discovered long ago. This is such an old dinosaur that like in the paper they don't have a word for fenestrae yet. Like that terminology just hasn't crystallized, but not in the calcite way.
Is that true?
Yeah, no, because
Holy shit.
talks about it in the references the lateral temporal vacuity and stuff, and describes the large vacuities, however, form conspicuous a feature in the American megalosaurian skulls are clearly defined. So like they just call them vacuities
That's
and
pretty
stuff.
cool.
Yeah. Along the later on it was like it extends by lateral element from the margin of the antorbital vacuity. Like it's really, really funny.
I like that. It reminds me of what exists between my eyes and ears after having COVID again. And
There you
being
go.
able to remember nothing. Anyway, should we rank it?
Yeah, I think we've
Do
said
we-
all the things.
I have not had much to contribute to this the ongoing conversation about the phylogeny. And so what I was trying to do is see if I could find the origin, like the etymology of character in terms of like anatomical characters. If it was just like a shortening of characteristic, and I cannot find it. It was used at least as early as the 1920s, almost certainly earlier than that, to describe
I
discrete
found a paper from like 1914 using it.
anatomical characters. But it is it might not be a shortening of characteristic so much as just another take on, like, another meaning of the word character in general, which one of its definitions is apparently, and I've just been looking at the etymology and definition of the word character, is just characteristic, or like a, well, no, that's definitionally shortening the word characteristic, but just like relating to like the nature of something being its character.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yes.
As well.
That
Yeah,
makes sense.
Good character.
Which-
like it's not a character as in a movie
Character's
character,
well,
Yeah,
or a caricature. It's like yeah, like you said, like the nature, the essence of something.
yeah.
It's the
You know, I
character.
bet that's what it. I bet that's where it
James
comes
is a
from.
man of
whenever-
good character. Yeah.
And they all
Well,
relate.
nobody's ever said that.
They all come back
No.
to the Greek character, which is a stamping tool, to give something a distinctive mark or like a token.
Cool.
And I think that makes more sense in the phylogenetic context. Like trait is just describing an animal. Like if you look at an animal, what color is it? What shape is it? Versus like character in the phylogenetic sense, like we've been talking about, is you're tracing the anatomy and the features through time. So you're talking about like the essence of a group, like what things
Right.
make that group what they are. So it's probably like in
That's an
that
interesting
vein.
take. You know, I see what you're saying. I never thought about it that
Yeah.
way. That's interesting.
Alternatively, what if some German guy just was like, I like how that sounds?
Could be. The world may never know. In fact, the world does know, I'm sure. It's written somewhere and I just can't find it because I'm not trying tremendously hard.
If Dalton can find it,
Don't
not
bother
that.
looking.
It's lost.
They call
It's
me the
lost
archivist.
knowledge.
Dalton, the living repository of all human knowledge.
History man, can I have a word burger?
History.
No,
man.
no word burgers today. There are no word burgers on this. Let's rank it.
This is a
Indeed.
meme from the past. The reference has been lost.
It's time to rank that guy.
Rank it, stank it, put it on a plank and make it.
I'm very
Walk out.
happy that most of the remaining animals on this wheel are theropods.
I'm happy
And
for our
cool
viewership,
ones.
considering we tend to get more viewers on theropod videos.
Yeah, Chung King ain't doing great.
No, it's
Chuck,
not.
Chuck King.
Chuck King.
Chuck King,
Dalton's uncle?
my uncle.
Alex's uncle.
My uncle now. I've
Sto-
taken
stolen
it.
uncle.
Uncle Valor.
Uncle.
Well, it's funny because my uncle's name is just Valor.
Yeah, I like it. It's lanky and weird looking. Like it looks somehow more real than a lot of their other like small dinosaurs. Like I don't know why. It looks like an animal. It's lanky in the right ways.
It gives coyote.
It gives coyote.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
It's very very like rascally, very varmint,
Wily, you might say.
wily, rapscallion, all kinds of fun words. I think describe this. The colors are really good. I don't care that it doesn't have the fuzz because like the one in the mobile game that has the fuzz looks like, you know, like those strings of like algae that you can pull out of the lake. Like it's green and it's
Oh, yeah, it is.
it looks like, so I got a couple months ago now, I think. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Time's fake. I got my cat a new toy, which is a ball with like this feather tail thing on it. And one morning I woke up and I think he'd been like sucking on the whole thing because it was like wet and crispy. And like that's how the feathered Procerosaurus looks in the mobile game. Yeah. So that
Like,
toy
like a
is no
sucked
longer.
mango pit.
It's like he sucked the whole thing, and the string is like this long. I don't know
Well,
what
have
he
you-
was doing. So
Have you seen the cat on TikTok that sucks its tail? And like
Yeah.
it sucks it way down.
oh my god. So anyway.
It deep throats its own tail.
I don't like
It's
that.
I don't like that at all. Anyway,
Stop saying the words you're saying.
so since I
Amelia,
discovered
continue saying
that-
your words.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm
Speak
trying
your
so
truth.
hard. Oh my god.
We hear support women. Amelia's been speaking her truth.
Anyway, for anyone concerned about the well-being of my cat, I have put that toy away and is now only out when with supervision because I don't know what he was doing with it overnight. But anyways, that's what the fuzzy one looks like in the mobile game. Stop.
Vito, you wild man.
Stop.
Cat owners. The cat is the noblest and most intelligent cat.
Intelligence.
You will never catch me calling this animal noble and intelligent.
Intelligent.
I'm so sorry about intelligence.
All right, wow, we
Anyway.
really managed to speak over Amelia.
Yeah, it is.
Sorry, Amelia.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Anyways, to come back to the point, it makes me glad that this thing does not have the fuzz, because maybe it would not have looked good and it would have looked like a shag carpet. I'm torn. I like it. I think I have to give it an S. Like I was going to give it an A at first, but like I don't know. Like I said, it looks like a real animal. I like the colors.
You know, you've swayed me, Amelia, because I was also going to give it an A. And I think I'm giving it an S, too. The only thing keeping me out, that was originally keeping me from giving it an S, was that, it's a little ugly, but it's ugly in the correct... It's not an ugly design. The animal itself is ugly. It's an ugly animal. It's like a vulture and a coyote had a baby. And it didn't, and it has mange. It's not that bad. It looks very plausible. It's just kind of a little bit goofy, very lanky, but that's the right vibe for this kind of animal. That's what it should be. My assumption would be that these were small predators, probably scavenging a lot too, right? Probably not eating anything very big. So
Unless it was a Brachiosaurus.
unless it was a Brachiosaurus, and
Yes, of
every
course.
every Proceratosaurus in existence in Britain at the time would come together to form a Voltron of Proceratosaurus. That's real, by the way. We found one.
Gigaceratosaurus.
Right. Yeah. We found a Proceratosaurus Voltron in England. It's covered up by Big Paleo. Yeah, I like it. It's an S tier. You know what else I noticed? Its teeth don't go too far back.
Yeah.
Which is a great little
No.
detail.
I think that really helps.
Yeah.
It has a lot of teeth, and the real animal has a lot of teeth. This is good. There's good and there's not good. This is good.
This is good.
S tier. There's S tier and there's not S tier. This is S tier.
So I'm gonna go right off the bat and say, I think I really want to give it an A. It doesn't quite go far enough into S tier for me for a couple reasons, and I'll fully acknowledge that most of the reason why I think it doesn't go into S tier is just gameplay stuff. That in the parks, it needs so many friends that the exhibits with it always seem very crowded. And I really dislike the pack hunting thing. Those just kind of, in general, just kind of put me off of it a little bit. And that is not the fault of the design. Something I will fault the design for is its feet are f***ed up when it walks.
Oh.
Yeah, they are. That's weird.
Ooh.
It's like
Dalton.
its outer toe. It's like most lateral digit doesn't move.
Yeah, Dalton, can you put it into slow-mo
yeah,
for a
yeah.
second?
What's the control for that? T. Ugh, why do that?
Is this
Look at how the middle toe breaks when it
Ew.
walks.
I don't think it's breaking. I think it just looks weird because the other one's not moving.
Oh, the
I
other
think
ones
it's-
just
it's-
aren't.
Yeah, it's picking up its toes like an
Do
animal
we think
would.
this is rigged on a dromaeosaur?
Well, if it was rigged on a dromaeosaur, it would be the first digit that was staying still. Oh, it probably is, actually.
It could be.
No, it would be the wrong digit is the one that's staying
The
still.
wrong
They,
digit's the one
swapped
that's
the
staying
legs.
still, but yeah.
I think
That's-
it might just be an animation error.
Yeah,
be.
It's something I always end up looking at whenever these guys are walking
Also-
around, and I'm just especially if you're just looking at them from the side, it just looks like their feet aren't animating at all.
That's
and
what
it
grass is
always
for.
looks really weird. Yes, that is what grass is for, and these guys like a lot of forest, so you don't see them a lot, even though they're very pretty. But I do think it is pretty awesome that this thing's skull is just what the skull looks like. It is exactly 1-to-1. You just can do a paleontology and transpose the actual picture of the skull right over that, and it is 1-to-1 exactly what that is supposed to look like. And that is really cool that they did that. It's like Majungasaurus in that sense. So there's a couple little points that I will take off of it, but overall, it's an A tier. I enjoy it immensely, and it is significantly way better than the other theropod from that formation, Megalosaurus, which came into my house and kicked my dog, and I hate it.
I've been on a roller coaster ride for a few reasons. One, when I originally saw it, I thought, it's a good design. I would like it to be furry, but we also don't get a lot of early Silurosaurs, and I'm happy with how it looks. It looks like a nice red, like kind of mid-90s, like delicious, much like Amelia said. I don't necessarily agree or understand with Amelia's judging of what it would look like with feathers based on a game that has only ugly designs for animals in it. But that's, I think, I'm like, okay, I like it. And then Scott pointed out the feet, and I'm having a hard time moving past these feet.
Sorry.
It's really good. Like, I would put this as a high A. This white skin's so nice, though. And I do kind of hate how it behaves in the game. This is pretty, and low S, actually. Yeah, who am I kidding? I think it looks nice. I'm just not looking at the feet.
Yeah.
Inverse Tarantino.
Yeah, ew. Put those
Evil Tarantino.
Put those dogs away.
Put those dogs away.
Here, you know what? Actually, we can even make it not move, or we'll just put it in.
Yeah, I'll say low S.
Yeah, look, Scott put it in S tier now.
Hey! Oh my god, look at that! S tier.
It's
Stunning.
It's a definite S tier for me. It's a gorgeous design. All of the colors and patterns are really nice. The pattern colors highlight the crest, and then continue those colors
nicely.
kind of on the body a little bit, which is really fun in ways that I think look very pretty. I like the sounds. I like this kind of the shape and the movement of the animal, barring the creepy feet, which I am sad to now know about. I like that it gives a little snarl every once in a while, which, don't come at me. I know it's not. They don't have the facial muscles to do that. But also, there's that one lizard that can snarl. So, I don't know.
What's the snarl lizard?
It's an agama, the butterfly agama.
Yeah, it's the one he's got. It does the little thing.
That's
it's
cool.
The silliest
It
thing.
looks really
Hold on
dumb.
a second. You said butterfly agama?
I believe so. Yeah.
No, it's that one with the little horns. He's not. This is a pretty one. It's toad-headed.
Yes.
Toad-headed. No, that's the other one. That's the.
Yeah. What's the? It's not the butterfly agama. Oh my god.
The toad-headed agama is the one that's the lizard from Holes, right?
No, those are just painted bearded dragons. But back to what I was saying about the design in general, it's gorgeous. I like pretty much everything about it, and it joins the ranks of S tier. There are some that I feel like I can just look at and I'm like immediate S, and it's just with the way that like the skin is rendered, and there's like a lot of detail paid to all these little pebbly scales, and it looks really really nice. And it's just like there are some that for some reason like the texturing just locked in really really well, and this is one of those, and those are like automatic S tiers for me. I know it should have feathers. I can pretend in my mind, hey, we think at some point in the line Tyrannosaurus lost a lot of feathers. Is that because of size? Probably. And are all of these things relatives that we know have feathers? Yes. But, the brain...
These are just the sick ones.
The brain can do what the brain does, and the brain gives this an S.
Alrighty, so with 4 S's and an A, that puts it very comfortably up in S tier, which is a very good place for it.
Yes, it is.
All right, everybody, it is time to
swim that wheel.
spin
Spin that
wheel.
Oh my god.
Wow.
That's funny. We did the pro. Now we're doing the Cerato.
Amateur Ceratosaurus.
Oh my god. Well, that's perfect.
That's so funny.
It was before Ceratosaurus. It now is Ceratosaurus.
So,
Indeed.
let's take this opportunity to thank our patrons who
Thank
make
you.
this channel possible. Now, all of our patrons do an immense service for the channel. The support we get on Patreon is really what enables us to keep taking the time that we need to make these videos, make them hopefully good and informative for you, and keep them coming up so regularly. And so we thank all of our patrons from the bottom of our hearts. As one of the perks in our Patreon, patrons who support us at Gorgosaurus tier or higher, that's $25 a month or more, get a special shout out, a spoken shout out at the end of the video. My brain is currently dribbling out of my skull pan, but I will still thank everybody before my Broca's area completely ejects from my skull. So,
Like a pilot in Titanfall. Just
just right out. I can't generate speech. I would like to thank Benjamin Seepser, nickname Philip Fico, Christopher Bellis Jones, Aaron Anderson, Adam Olos, Blacklight Virus, Camphibia, Dan O'Kyrus, Dinodom, King Zashu, Max Ironpaw, original username, Pythonic, Ryan Wants to Die, Swamp Ape Science, Wanderer, and we. I got through it. Thank you all for your support of the Skeleton Crew.
Wait. Was one of our patrons named the Blacklight Virus?
Yes.
yeah.
That's a prototype reference.
Oh wow.
Wow.
that's the
It's
name-
been
That's the
It's
name of the
been
virus in the
so
prototype
long
games. There are two
since
of them.
I have thought about those
Oh,
games.
I loved those games. Not as good as Infamous.
Oh, me
but,
too.
That's wild. That activated a core memory.
Well, I don't know this game, so it did not do that for me, but I am very happy to, as per kind of usual nowadays, see new names on this list. It seems like almost every week, so thank you guys so much. And we do get new patrons all the time, and we thank all of you for being part of our growing community and for doing what you do to keep the Skeleton Crew running. So thank you all very much. Also, just tell us in the comments, should we get sponsored by Topo Chico? A Mexican brand of seltzer that is bottled at the source, naturally carbonated at the source in Monterey.
Hey, don't tell us. Tell them.
Yes, tell
Hey,
Topo Chico.
If you know that Topo Chico is involved in horrible labor practices or other bad things, please let us know so we stop doing this bit.
Yes,
Please.
please tell me.
And if not, invent some so we stop doing this bit.
No, don't
No,
do that.
stop. Everybody except Scott likes the bit.
For the viewers at home who have a Skeleton Crew bingo card, this is the time to mark the James carries on a bit longer than it's funny spot.
That's impossible because
No, it's still funny.
That's not
Incorrect.
It's not funny. It's not. It's still funny. You are
I-
wrong.
you
You're just
told me-
upset you didn't have Topo Chico.
Amelia has not experienced the refreshing flavor of Topo Chico.
If you want us to stop talking about Topo Chico, leave a comment. If you want us to be paid for talking about Topo Chico, leave a comment at Topo Chico's corporate headquarters. Just, preferably with an ominous message outside the headquarters that just says Skeleton Crew. With a crudely spray-painted version of our logo.
I can't wait for that company to send us a cease and desist letter once they watch one of our videos.
It's going to be so exciting. Anyway, thank you all. Topo Chico bits are now over because the video is over. Good night and goodbye.
Good night. Goodbye.
Bye.